Well, it's good to see you this afternoon. I've missed you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make funny, stupid jokes. Today, we're going to continue with our wonderful, unusual, special animal sanctuaries. Now, you've got some behind me. They're saying, "Hey, Jim, you better do a good job, or we're gonna we're gonna do a medical procedure on you to fix you." But anyway, I shouldn't start out as a joke, right? Things as a joke. So anyway, what we're talking about today is the animal threshold. And the neatest thing I find is that every time I'm ready to put together a new presentation, it's like, well, I hope I find an interesting one and again, I know I'm the one that chooses, so it's interesting to me, and I certainly would love it to be interesting to you. But loving animals and wanting them to have the best care in the world would certainly be a lot of people's goals, you might say. So let's get going. So tucked into a misty canyon where warm mineral springs bubble up through black basalt, there's an animal sanctuary that doesn't use cages, fences, or even clear boundaries. And I know you say, wow, that's kind of weird, but you'll see why that kind of makes sense and where they've gone into how to take care of these animals in the best way possible. Instead, the land itself does the work. The sanctuary is built on a series of natural terraces, as you're looking at, carved by ancient lava flows. Each terrace hosts a different micro-world. One is a shallow wetland, warmed year-round by geothermal heat, where rescued otters and injured waterfowl relearn how to swim even in winter. And you'll see that location in just a little bit. Another terrace is a sun-baked stone garden home to reptiles who bask in naturally heated rocks that mimic desert dawns. Higher up, wind-cooled forest plateau shelters shy mammals like foxes, lynx, and small antelope can retreat into a dense fog. And, that's certainly, what you're seeing here. So, the animals come in, and I'll tell you in a little bit how they get there and so on and so forth. But they find the best in this, and again, there's no fences. So they find, as part of the levels and area, the best area they feel the most comfortable with. So whenever they want privacy, they just can go into the fog here, and you'll see other locations where they can do that. What makes the sanctuary truly unusual is that humans, that's me, I've been called worse or better, are considered temporary guests. Caretakers live in, this is kind of an idea, of underground, in low-impact dwellings with one-way glass and plant-covered roofs. So animals rarely see people unless they choose to. That's pretty cool. The whole goal of this sanctuary is to be as natural as it can be but still provide the care and the help that is needed. Anyway, feeding happens through hidden channels in landscape, and medical care is done in the open air clearings designed to feel like natural glades rather than clinics. Now you can see, and when I first saw this image, I was like, oh, is that an animal that's actually helping the animal? Well, no, actually, it's two people. One of them on the right has kind of like an animal hood, head. And, the point being is, one, it's out in the air. They only have the light that they need. Of course, they have qualified people to do what needs to be done. And they themselves try to disguise themselves so the animal doesn't feel they're in a sterile, alcohol-smelling room or building. I mean, really, when I went through all this and I was almost not afraid, but I'm saying, wow, this is so unique. I just hope I can, how would you say, capture the moment of all the intricacies and efforts they've done to keep it where the animals don't necessarily know they're in a place that they, isn't like their home. So that's, how would you like to have appendectomy out on the hospital roof? But anyway, at night, and again, this isn't like big floodlights that come on. At night, the sanctuary changes again. Soft, bioluminescent plants line the paths, not bright enough to disturb nocturnal animals. So here we go. We get them set up for those in the day, those that need, the nocturnal point of coming out to do what they need to do, but just enough to guide them. That's what these, the plants that actually glow. Now, visitors limited to a handful each month. They actually do not walk around this location. And I know this is kind of weird, but they lie in silent, wheeled platforms that glide slowly along the stone tracks, letting the animals pass overhead on bridges of roots and rocks. So even with yes, there's a limited amount of people that can come. They limit it, but they also make it where, in a lot of cases, the animals will not even know anybody's there. And once they get used to this home, they could very well just say, hey, we're here by ourselves and we're having fun. The water and food comes through unseen locations that they can get to. But it's not where somebody's standing up ringing a door, a bell for lunch or dinner. Anyway, the goal isn't to display animals or even to rehabilitate them for release at all costs. It's to give each one a place where survival doesn't mean constant stress. Some animals leave. Many stay. And, if you see what they'll say later, that's okay. They're fine. If an animal comes in and says, nah, unless, of course, they're really injured, then they're taken care of. But if they come into here and they're like, well, this isn't really where I feel it's my home, they basically just can leave. And the land itself, shaped more like a living organism than a facility, quietly adapts around them. The sanctuary, as I said, is called the threshold because it is meant to sit between worlds wild and protected, human and non-human healing and freedom. Animals aren't labeled as rescues once they arrive. Records focus on needs and preferences, not origins. The core rule is simple. No animal should feel observed as a condition of care. I mean, I probably couldn't even really do well in a facility or a sanctuary like this because I would want to be very close to the animals. Unless there's one who's probably going to bite my hand off, but I don't think, unless they feel threatened, they're going to be okay. Anyway, now how animals arrive, you're probably saying, yeah, that's a good question. Most residents come via quiet transfers at night, injured wildlife that can't safely return to a fully human dominated landscape, animals displaced by climate shifts or individuals who never learned key survival skills. Now, as you know, and if you listen to any of my presentations, the point is, and I love elephants. Let's use an elephant as an example. When a mother gives birth to a baby elephant, that baby elephant is with that mother for a very long time. Could be 20 years. But if something happens, and unfortunately with poaching and of course other medical issues, they might not have their mother for a very long time. So they would certainly not have the skills to survive. And yes, of course, they would be, I miss my mother so much, it's terrible, I don't like this. But the point is, you would love to have them go somewhere that they can be trained to, when they feel they're ready, to move on. Anyway, instead, animals are released directly into a transitional valley. There's not a building, not a barn, and it has multiple exits. If they leave immediately, that's considered a success, not a failure. So, I mean, again, if they feel, and, I can't always speak for the animals, but, they know their situation. And if they come into something like this, unless they're injured and they got to have medical care, and again, as I said earlier, and you saw the picture, it's done outside. So it's not, Dr. Joe with a big light on his head and big lights facing down. It's done almost in a sneaky way, if I can say it that way. Anyway, so if they come in and go, I don't really need this place, I'm in pretty good shape, they can just, with the many ways of moving on, they just leave and say, well, that was a nice place, but I don't think I need it right now. And animals are very smart. They might just say, I'm going to keep this as a reference in my mind, just in case I need to go there in the future. Now you probably say, oh, come on. Well, I see animals every day and they're pretty darn smart. And, if you think of humans, we start school when we're about 4 or 5 years old. And typically you go through 12 years of and again, I'm only going from what I went through, but elementary school, which for us was grade 1 through 6. And then we had it, before that, we had a year of what we call kindergarten. Probably not the best use of your time, but that's okay. You come right out of where, you have to learn to be with people and so on and so forth. So, again, if they feel that they like it here and they find the plateau or terrace that's right for them, they can stay as long as they want, stay forever, stay for a day, or leave. Anyway, landscape as enrichment instead of toys or enclosures. Enrichment is geological and ecological. Wind corridors that change direction seasonally, encouraging migration-like movement. So again, this is a real environment with multiple different locations. And I've already shown, they get forests, this is geothermal, where if they said, hey, I want to be in warm water, they can do that. Trees, being up high, feeling safe. I showed you the picture with, it looks foggy, where you wouldn't see any animal that was in there. And that might be what their goal is. I don't want to have it where people keep coming and bothering me. And when we go back to the way the limited number of people go here, they're not walking around making noise. They're put in a cart and they're pushed through these locations. But again, making sure that the residents don't really necessarily know they're there. Anyway, trees grown into natural arches and ramps, allowing climbing animals to choose complexity or simplicity of what they're comfortable doing. Now, mineral springs. This is what we're looking at now. Mineral springs with varying salinity, giving animals the ability to self-select what their bodies need. I mean, really, you almost would say, oh, come on, Jim, did you really just make this all up? Where you wanted to just show a sanctuary that wouldn't be possible? Well, this is possible because this is real. And, the good news is, as a creator, you're always afraid that you're going to run out of content potentials. Well, I'm finding with the sanctuaries that the next one I do in a couple days will be maybe not as unusual as this one, but it certainly won't be the normal, that's just like everything else. Now, also, acoustic zones where rock formations amplify or dampen sound, letting sensitive species avoid noise entirely. Caretakers are trained less like zookeepers and more like field ecologists and trauma-informed medics. Because again, I guess there'd be like, if an animal's going to come in and not have any potential for being helped, it wouldn't totally make sense. But they have this at such a level of where some animals are just here because they want to be, some are here because they need help, and others are just saying, due to deforestation or poaching, if they just say, I need a place that I feel safe. So the fact, again, back to the terraces, there's so many different locations and heights and so on and so forth, that wherever an animal is comfortable, they will have a place in this sanctuary. They wear, the caregivers wear scent neutral fabrics and rotate vocal patterns so no single human voice becomes dominant or stress inducing. So, if let's say somebody was like, shouldn't be working here, and they don't love animals, this is where an animal can say, uh-oh, I hear Jim's voice and he's a jerk. No, we all change. They change their voices so that they don't sound the same. And I'm sure the way this is so, if I'm going to use the word metered, that's probably not a good term, but they seek the level of both height, forestation, rocks, fog, geothermal, warm water, etc., etc. So instead, care spaces are designed to be attractive, warm, sheltered, and calm. And so animals can opt in. Human presence, very limited. Visitors must stay for at least 3 days, long enough to slow down. There's another issue where they're saying, okay, so Joe or Sue, you're here on vacation, so you want to just come into the facility, and they'll like, yeah, I just want to walk through and we'll take a look. They say, well, you got to be here 3 days. And they're like, 3 days? If they have 3 days versus 3 hours, the difference of needing to get to the next area and is with 3 days, it's like we can walk backwards or we can crawl or we're in our cot and we can have do whatever we need. Anyway, there are no signs with species names. Guides speak in verbs, not nouns. In other words, resting, listening, choosing, distance. Photography is banned. The idea is to break the instinct to collect experiences and replace it with atonement. Long-term outcomes, over years, something strange happens. Animals begin forming mixed species routines that don't exist in typical wild settings. Now, we all want to have friends versus enemies, right? Well, in the wild, you've got animals that are, can be hunted, other animals that are the hunters. Well, the neat thing about this facility is, and I guess it's because it takes away some of the pressure of, needing, let's say, the reason why, and you're looking at a tiger here that's actually leaving, but they come to learn that they're going to get what they need both in water and food without needing to act like I've got to go find and attack an animal for food. They're all taken care of. So they can say, hey, I can sit back and relax. And I don't have to worry that I'm not going to have what I need. And I'm not going to have to attack anybody. I know, let's say this tiger, their nature in some respects would be to attack another animal. They have to get food for their, let's say, their cubs and so on and so forth. But when they live here, it takes some of the, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to get food, I've got to take care of my cubs. No, they see that they can just love and be with their family, and they will have what they need without needing to go out and get one of the other animals. And, the whole thing is, as I mentioned a minute ago, that some of the species, after being here for a while, say, that elephant is not a bad guy or girl. Let's say the tiger's saying that. And they would be like, since I have everything I need, I can be friends with them. And if they can be there for as long as they want. So over time, and the old time heals all wounds, over time, these animals will say, gee, as I mentioned a minute ago, I don't have to attack another animal to feed my cubs. So it gets where they're saying, I can have a lot of friends here. And that's unique also. Because, in most places it'd be like, you got to keep this type of animal away from that type of animal. Well, this is so spread out, so where they can go anywhere they want, and there's no threat, there's no peril, and they have what they need. So they can learn new tricks. A lot of animal actions are instinct. And we recognize that they have an instinct if they're in the wild, that they have to feed themselves and they have to feed their cubs or their elephant baby, so on and so forth. But over time, they'll learn that they don't need to do that. And they can just kind of enjoy the ride, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, they can share resting sites, synchronized movement at dusk, even cooperative alert behaviors. So in other words, they might say, hey, Joe, some animal just came in new, and let's make sure you're going to be okay, and you're taken well, you're taken well care of. Researchers don't interfere in any map patterns after the fact. In other words, they have total freedom. There's no like you're up here and you're down there, and like you can't. That's where you are, and that's where you're going to stay. No. They say, well, I'm a little desiring to be at a higher altitude, or I want to go down to that geothermal spring and go for a swim. Hey, wouldn't we all like something like this for vacations? Although we probably can't take vacations this long. But anyway, the sanctuary doesn't claim to recreate wild. It offers something rarer. A place where animals can exist without being managed minute by minute, and where humans are gently, consistently reminded that they are not the center of the system. So again, this is the animal's place. Either those that come in for 3 days to visit, the medical teams that will help an injured animal, and any others, the animals rule. And the caregivers are only there, almost hidden, just in case. So, you heard me say, and I'm almost done, but you heard me say that when an animal comes in, a new animal, and because they have multiple exits, they can kind of look around, look up at the high locations, the low locations, the foggy area that they can hide if they want. The springs, if it's cold, it's whatever they need. And the good news is, again, if an animal decides it's time for me to move on, they just move on. And as I said earlier, if an animal comes in and goes right out, it goes in one door or one entrance and out the other entrance, the facility doesn't say, oh, we failed. They're saying we succeeded, because the animal is feeling that they don't need to stay here. And then any time in the future, if they're staying now, they can say, I think I want to move on. So I hope you enjoyed this. I am blessed to do this because I just honestly love animals more than I can even describe. And that's what's neat about YouTube. I probably wouldn't be doing animals if I was saying, well, I've got to, make a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. No, it's basically just the point that you kind of like love animals so much that you want to learn as much as you possibly can. So, name of the channel is Phoenix Animal. And my company is All Power Group. And Jamie, there's Jamie. She thanks you for being here. And, if you're able to, watch additional, I would appreciate that. And subscribe, of course. Everybody says that. But the two that you're looking at, and I've been doing animal presentations full time for almost 3 years now. You'll find, if you go onto my channel proper, you will find hopefully a lot of interesting animals that you can learn. Just to talk a little bit about the picture on the left is Frida. She is a German Shepherd, as you can say, and she's a canine hero, and she did work for, the Houston Police Department. And that's an interesting presentation, because for 8 years, she found drugs, found people that shouldn't be where they are, found people that the police are looking for. I can go on and on and on. And they retired her after 8 years because, it's a tough job. And the picture on the right, and this is another great facility. We're older, my wife and I. I'm 76, my wife is 72. And we love Jamie, and she's 11 years old. And, the people that you see on the thumbnail on the right, those are elderly people with dogs. And they would be saying, and unfortunately in some cases, and this is a solution that makes such a difference. Some of them would say, I can't adopt another animal because I'm too old. And we're on a fixed income, and animals can be expensive. But what this facility does, if you look at the video if you can later, in essence, it's kind of like it's an adoption issue, but not a permanent adoption for these elderly people. And what this facility does is it will only allow an older couple or just an older person to take one of these dogs, and they've got to be within 100 miles of this facility. And if they run into an issue with either the animal getting sick, this facility will take that animal in to help the animal live, or at least get the care that the animal needs. Now, admittedly, we all, with the animals that we have that are our own, we love them, love them, love them. But factually, animals have a much shorter lifespan, I hate to say. It should be the other way around. Bad people, short life. Great animals, long life, but it doesn't work that way. But the point is, they can, in their later years, have an animal, keep the animal as long as they can. But if something happens to either the people or the animals needs care, the facility, 100 miles away or less, comes and picks up that animal. So yeah, I know they would say, I don't want to lose the animal. Well, they would only be taken in, medically if they really have a big medical problem. And the elderly person can't handle it, both in a sense of what they can do, but also financially. So anyway, thank you very much for being here today. The one thing I also want to say, this is Friday, and I want to, again, pray and wish the best for Nancy Guthrie and her family. Yes, it's scary. These things should not happen. But we pray that this has a good ending. And I will admit that every day goes by is not a good day to go by. So hopefully something's going to happen. And I make sure at around 6:30 at night, I have plenty of news on where they update everything that's gone on during the day. Anyway, thank you for being here. And I just want to say I appreciate you being here, subscribing, and looking at some of my videos. It really makes me very happy. And thanks again.